Can Frozen 2 surpass its predecessor and become the highest grossing film of 2019? Hello, I'm Thomas from TLEV Media, here to provide you with a spoiler-free review of Frozen 2. Now, the sequel to the beloved 2013 classic is everything that you could imagine and so much more. It now takes place 6 years after the original, and without further ado, let's dive into the plot, the characters, the music, and of course, the effects. Plot. As I briefly mentioned, Frozen 2 takes place 6 years after the events of the first film. So it's a great time where the characters have now developed further. Now Queen Elsa has been a queen for 6 years. You see Arendelle has adapted to the fact that it is no longer in an eternal winter. The characters are starting to evolve from their state in the first movie. Now the plot revolves around many of the questions that we had after the first film, much doing with our main characters. But that doesn't make this film predictable in any way, quite the contrary. Unlike the original story, which was very much written to be this optimistic, big Broadway musical, this one has a lot of nuances to it. Yes, the first one did have Hans being the villain, when we thought he was supposed to be Prince Charming, but this one has a little more complex layers to the overall story. I don't want to give too much away because of course this is a spoiler-free review, but in my opinion, the material that is provided to the audience in Frozen 2 is much more substantive than the material provided in the first movie. I'll admit it, I was not a big fan of the first Frozen. So when I went to see this movie, I tried to go in with an open mind. I liked the music from the first one, but I didn't think it was exceptional. I've always been more of a fan of Tangled than the first Frozen. And then I was confused by the fact that Frozen was becoming this international blockbuster, especially at the Disney parks, being represented everywhere, when I thought Tangled should be represented. But the reason why I'm saying this is because the story of Frozen 2 has completely shifted my view of this overall franchise. Not only does it deal with the questions of the first movie, but it also completes the story. Director and writer Jennifer Lee said that this was like a second act to an overall Broadway musical that was the Frozen story. The story of Anna, Elsa, Kristoff, Sven, and of course Olaf. There's a great balance of what audiences are expecting to see in this story that is continuing the first film, with some development of not only the characters, but their environment. The world that they live in has now become so much bigger than in the first film. And I think this film executes the story so well. Characters. Director Jennifer Lee put this movie in one word: transformation. And I think that word sums up it so perfectly. The characters are not much different than when we saw them 6 years ago, but the adaptation and evolution of themselves when they enter the Enchanted Forest is phenomenal. Kristen Bell and Idina Menzel, who play Anna and Elsa respectively, are back as the powerhouses that we saw in the first film and are exceptional role models for little girls and for women. But the breakout star that I feel like was in this movie was Kristoff, who's voiced by Jonathan Groff. We had Kristoff in the first film being this mountain man who was supposed to be the opposite of Hans, who was the Prince Charming of the story. The writers really let Kristoff expand who he was, and this is shown in his song, Lost in the Woods. It's an amazing power ballad, but I think the best part is the line that says, "You feel what you feel, and those feelings are real." Kristoff has developed from a character of being this mountain man to being a role model for young boys and young men as to what it means to be a partner, that your input doesn't always have to be there. All it could be is simple as, "I'm here, what do you need?" There are also some amazing additions to the cast. Sterling K. Brown plays Sir Matthias, who is this general who has been fighting in the Enchanted Forest for decades. His development comes from what he stands for at the beginning of the film all the way to what he stands for at the end of the film. No matter what, his duty to Arendelle is always his priority, and it makes him a great warrior and a great character. Not only that, but Evan Rachel Wood, who plays the mother of Elsa and Anna, is an amazing addition to the story. In fact, she is the trailblazer for us learning what happened to the parents and what significance of Elsa's powers are. Olaf has a great evolution. From being essentially a toddler in the first film, learning everything for the first time, he is now developed to essentially asking complex societal questions that make not only the characters think, but also us as an audience think. His song, When I Am Older, plays an amazing part in the movie. Not only that, I think it's better than his summer song from the first film. Olaf is a great comic relief, but he does not distract the audience from the overall message of the story. His jokes are a lot more witty than they were in the first film, and I enjoyed him overall a lot more. The one person I think got the short end of the stick in this story was Anna. Anna's story is very much someone post-trauma. She is constantly worried that she's going to lose all those she loves. And because of that, her state of mind is somewhat irrational at certain points. And this is reflected in her song, which I'll talk about more in the musical section, but I don't know what's missing. She has a great arc in this story. She goes from being essentially the damsel in Frozen to being able to hold her own at the end of this film. It's a great story of how to resolve post-trauma. But I don't know. I feel like there was something missing about her character. Musical. It's hard to talk about Elsa without talking about Idina Menzel. They are one in the same. Idina Menzel, of course, a Broadway veteran, is a powerhouse in this movie. Her two songs, Into the Unknown and Show Yourself, gave me goosebumps seeing the film. And her development from being the person who was told to conceal and don't feel to at the end of this movie is an amazing story, and it's shown through the music, especially these two songs, Into the Unknown and Show Yourself. Into the Unknown, she's trying to hold back what destiny is calling her to do. And then Show Yourself, she embraces her destiny and she's facing it heads on. It's an amazing story for this character, and it makes her even more of an icon for women and girls alike. The music itself is also a lot more mature than the music from the first one. Of course, it's the same powerhouse being Kristen Anderson Lopez and Bobby Lopez, who of course are EGOT awarded composers. But I felt, personally in my experience, that Frozen was the cookie cutter Broadway style of musical, whereas this film is a lot more complex. The music itself is layered, that it shows the maturity of these characters and the evolution that they go through in the Enchanted Forest. I mentioned that Lost in the Woods is an amazing song for Kristoff. I honestly think it's the best song of the entire movie because it is so different from all the other music that has ever come out in a Disney movie. It is essentially a power ballad fit for the 80s, and it is phenomenally well done in the edits and the animations of this movie. Honestly, I can listen to the Frozen 2 soundtrack 100 times more than the first Frozen soundtrack. Special effects. The special effects of this film are on a completely different color palette than they were in the first film. First one, of course, was very much the blues, the whites, and the turquoise of snow. This one has a lot more of an autumn feel to it because it is set in autumn. The trees are blossoming. There's hardly any snow in this film, which is something big to point out when Elsa has ice powers. There's a lot less snow. But I think that shows the color balance between when Elsa uses her powers in the world that she's surrounded in. It just contrasts so well that every shot of Elsa using her powers in the world that she is in is just beautiful. My favorite scene is one that's been in the trailers, which is why I'll talk about it, where Elsa is fighting this massive wave on a coastline. There's a scene where she doesn't make it through the wave and she becomes soaked. And when she's back on shore, determined to try and fight the wave again, her freckles are just so much more apparent because now that she is all drenched in water, her hair it just looks so realistic, the water effects on her. It is my favorite sequence of the entire movie, and it just is a testament to the style and to the creative team the 73 animators who are from the first film coming back for the sequel at Walt Disney Animation Studios. Conclusion. Overall, I am very, very happy to say that I recommend seeing this movie. Disney outdid themselves in many ways in this film. They were not afraid to deal with complicated subject matter in this film, which is what I felt like the first one was lacking. They trusted their young audience to deal with this sort of emotional darkness that you see in the trailers. This dark tone is a lot more present in this film than it was in the first film, and that's a good thing. Because in this way, this isn't just a film for the kids, this is a film for all ages. This is a film for those who were young children when they saw the first film and are now in their teen years. This is a film for those who were in their teen years when they saw the first film and are now young adults like myself. This is a film for those who were children and are still children, or adults who are still adults. It is, in many ways, the perfect film for all ages. It is not a flawless film. It's very rare for there to ever be a flawless film. But overall, as someone who did not enjoy the first film, I can't say enough how much I appreciated Disney taking a different tactic with this sequel. But that, of course, is my opinion, and now I want to hear yours. If you've seen the movie, let me know in the comment section down below. Of course, no spoilers, right? We want to make sure that we all have the same equal experience when entering the theater. If you want to see more movie reviews, make sure to let us know in the comment section down below, hit that subscribe button, and also turn on notifications so that you see all of our posts. For a more in-depth review, make sure to check out our website, TLEVmedia.com, link in the top of the description down below. Of course, I'm Thomas. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next movie review.